Chapter 2. I was shocked at how Snufkin told everything about last night's horror moments, so I asked him if he had heard anything about Moomintroll and if something terrible had happened to him. Snufkin replied that he had no information about what had happened to Moomintroll, so I decided to leave the basement with Snufkin and go inside the Moomin house. When we came inside the Moomin house, and I noticed how Moomin Papa and Moomin Mama were waiting for us with Moomintroll, and Moomin Papa told that he had found Moomintroll hiding under the bed in his room. Moomintroll was also shocked like Snufkin, so Moomin Mama went to the kitchen to brew coffee for us and something small to eat for breakfast. A few hours after the events, the police inspector had visited the crime investigation scene, and the bodies of Little Mai and my friend had been removed, as well as the area around Snufkin's tent had been isolated as a murder site where I had found my friend's body on the way to the Moomin house. We were sitting at the dining table with Moomintroll, Moomin Papa, and Snufkin, eating lunch in Moomin Mama's kitchen, which was washed as usual, and the kitchen stove was in its familiar way. However, I noticed that everyone at the dining table was completely silent and looked serious. I decided to break the silence and told the household how I had encountered the Groke on the way to the Moomin house in the dark forest. The others looked at me and seemed worried. Moomintroll told how he and my friend had visited the witch, whose visit had ended unpleasantly, and they had been met by Alicia, who told an old story about a woman who lived in Moomin Valley centuries ago and had kidnapped and killed dozens of villagers' children. The villagers had sentenced the woman to the most painful death. The woman was beaten, whipped, and kept in a cold hole in the ice throughout the winter. Eventually, she was skinned alive and thrown into the ice-cold sea to die. And the woman's last words had been, "I'll be back." I was in shock and horrified when Moomintroll told that, according to Alicia and the book, the woman's name had been the Groke. Then I said to Moomintroll that let's go visit the witch and Alicia. Moomin Papa remarked that the most reasonable thing was to go visit them the day after tomorrow, as the funerals would be tomorrow. Moomin Mama said that the police inspector had brought a letter that same day with the results of the autopsies of Sniff, Thingamy, and Bob. Snufkin said that we could sleep the first night together in the guest room where Sniff and Little Mai had stayed. We thought together how we could prepare if the Groke came that night as well, but it worried me even more if the Groke is a spirit being. I asked Moomin Papa if Mimble knew about Little Mai's death, and Moomin Papa said that the police inspector had probably gone to inform Mimble on the same day. We came to the conclusion that Moomin Papa and I would go to visit Mimble before dark. So Moomin Papa and I went to Mimble's place alone. Mimble lived alone with her sister Little Mai, 10 kilometers from the Moomin house. Moomin Papa and I told Mimble about the death of the deceased tiny guests, Sniff, my friend, and Little Mai. At first, Mimble did not believe in Little Mai's death, but in the end, she accepted the brutal truth. We told Mimble that there would be a funeral tomorrow and that there would be a lot of people coming. Mimble promised to tell her mother, sisters, and brothers. We wished Mimble our condolences from all the people of the Moomin house and continued the day and started walking with Moomin Papa towards the Moomin house. On a walk with Moomin Papa, we assumed that Moomintroll, Moomin Mama, and Snufkin would have prepared dinner, and that Moomin Papa would have really important things for all of us about the coming night. It was already 9 o'clock when Moomin Papa and I arrived at the Moomin house. Moomin Mama had already made fish soup with Moomintroll when Snufkin had gone fishing for fish on the river near the bridge. We enjoyed fish soup together with the others, and Moomin Papa informed us that they would not sleep separately at night, but that everyone would sleep in sleeping bags in the next room, while one of us is on guard in the living room if the Groke appears. Moomin Papa would be the first in line. After that, there would be Moomintroll, whose turn would change to me. In addition, the person on duty has to shout, so that everyone has time to escape from the Moomin house. So we went to sleep in the next room with Moomintroll, Snufkin, and Moomin Mama, leaving the door open just in case Moomin Papa would be the first to watch. I curled up in my own sleeping bag, wished the others good nights, and closed my eyes, quickly falling asleep. I woke up when Moomintroll came out of my sleeping bag. I quietly asked Moomintroll if the Groke had been seen or if anything else had been heard while he was on guard. Moomintroll replied in a whisper that he had not heard or seen the Groke, and he handed me Moomin Papa's rifle and candle to go to sleep in his own sleeping bag at the same time. I walked slowly towards the small round table in the living room, moving as quietly as possible. I carefully placed the rifle against the table and the candle on top of the table. I listened to the quiet hum of the house all the time, feeling that something was wrong. At some point, I fell asleep in the middle of my shift and fell asleep strangely. In the dream, I saw the faces of my friend, Thingamy, Bob, and Sniff. At the same time, I felt that I was seeing illusions about my friend from the moments of terror experienced during the nights, and at the same time I heard the death cries of Thingamy and Bob. I saw how the Groke tore open Thingamy's wrists and Bob set himself on fire from a table with a candle. I also saw that Sniff was terrified when the Groke was in his house, and Sniff smashed his hands open and took a carpet knife and made a long cut in his ear. At one point, I noticed Groke's frightening face and lifeless eyes, while her face twisted into the most nightmarish smile. At the same time, I was startled awake when Moomin Papa shook me by the shoulder and said that it was time to get up. A new day had arrived, and today would be the funeral. It was a warm, beautiful, sunny day when the funeral began with a very sad mood, when the priest of the Moomin Valley parish blessed 4 deceased Moomin Valley residents, including my good friend, of which 3 coffins were small and Sniff's and my friend's coffins were normal size. In addition to the funeral, there were also the people of the Moomin house, Snork, Snork Maiden, Mimble and her family, Mr. Hemelin, Snufkin, and Alicia. Each guest was allowed to leave their last greeting to their friends. Moomin Mama was very ashamed of the fact that she left the murder of Thingamy and Bob in her mouth, thinking they were mentally ill or drug addicts. Snufkin was also ashamed and didn't know why he had fled, leaving my friend in the lurch, and what caused him to panic too strongly. After the funeral, we all remembered Thingamy and Bob, Sniff, Little Mai, and my friend. Moomintroll suddenly remembered that the witch could really know something about Moomintroll, even though the subject was horrible to him, and he didn't really understand why the witch was so terrified and had left Moomintroll and my friends coldly without answers, ordering them out of their house. To be continued in the next chapter.